Welcome back to the Wholesome Fertility channel. I'm your host, Michelle Orbitz. I'm an acupuncturist specializing in fertility health, and I also have a background in Ayurveda. So if you're trying to conceive, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so that you don't miss any future fertility boosting tips that I'll be sharing. So today I'm going to cover a very interesting topic, which is pranayama. So this is an ancient Indian or yogi or yogini practice that has been done for thousands of years. Pranayama or yogic breathwork is extremely powerful and can really impact the mind and the nervous system. So if you want to find out more on how to hack your nervous system, and if you've watched some of my earlier videos, I talk a lot about how your nervous system really can influence your fertility health because it gets you into a more rest and digest state, and it can also influence your inflammation and your digestion, or even create more balance in your hormones. So if you are trying to conceive and you want to find out how you can really hack your body and mind through pranayama, this amazing ancient practice, then stay tuned. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is pranayama? So in Sanskrit, prana means life force vitality. So it's very similar to what qi in Chinese medicine means. And it's the life force vitality that goes through our body. And ayama means control or expansion. So pranayama, in essence, is the art of controlling your breath to influence the life force vitality in your body. So it's not just about breathing more deeply, though that's part of it. It's about becoming aware of how your breathing can influence your hormone balance and your nervous system, as well as reducing stress. And these are all really important and impactful things when you're trying to conceive. So although this is coming from ancient India, this is something that can control all bodies and all different cultures. And it's one of the many gifts that we get from the ancient Vedas, which is really linked to Ayurveda and yoga, the yogic tradition. And it's more of the physical therapy aspect of it. But this is all part of really the science of life and how they're giving you tools to really access this amazing, intelligent life force that resides in your body. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. So prana is very similar to qi, which is life force vitality. And this is basically the life force that we have that is intelligent and that keeps our body warm and that keeps our body functioning. So this is something that really is intelligent because that aspect of our bodies is what tells our cells what to do. And it also helps the self-healing mechanism of the body. And when we're in fight or flight, and I always come back to the nervous system, then our body is more worried about survival and regeneration is not as much of a priority because survival is more important. But what happens when we're in survival is that everything moves towards that survival and it's not worried about digestion. It's not worried about inflammation, all the things that are running in the background. And it can also impact your sleep because when you're trying to survive, you can't rest. You can't sleep, you can't afford to. You want to survive, you want to be alive. So that's ultimately how the nervous system operates. But when we're getting that free flow of energy and that we're able to really be enriched with the qi and the life force of prana, and we're able to get also in a more rest and digest mode, things will flow more easily and they're not going to be as constricted as things do happen with stress. And ultimately, as an acupuncturist, one of the biggest things that I do is I work a lot on pelvic energy flow and blood flow. So when there's more flow in your body, there's more blood flow, there's less constriction. And as we know, many times when people have high blood pressure, your blood vessels are actually muscle, and those muscles tighten, and it causes more constriction and more pressure. And we know that stress can even impact blood pressure. So that tightening is what happens when we're stressed. And ultimately, that tightening is going to block or impact, as I mentioned, with the liver chi, which is really its role is to get that energy to flow. So one of the ways that we can hack really our minds and our bodies is through pranayama. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of different techniques of breathing that you can do that will immediately have an impact on how you feel and how the energy and the prana in your body is able to flow, which ultimately will be beneficial not just for your body and your reproduction, but also your mind. And I'm sure you know that if you are on the fertility journey, it can be very stressful. And when you're stressed, there's been studies that show that when you're stressed, you can't really make a clear-minded decision. And as we know, when you're on the fertility journey, you need that decision-making aspect of your mind because you are going through a lot of different choices and options that are being thrown at you. So the first breath that I am going to be sharing with you is called Nadi Shodhana, and that is alternate nostril breath. So I like to call it the yin and yang pranayama, although that's not really the name, because it balances the yin and the yang in our brain. So both hemispheres of the brain start to function and come together. And this is one of the most immediate calming exercises that you can do. And what it does is it basically, you alternate sides and you will block one nostril and breathe in, and you can breathe into like the count of 4 or the count of 8, whatever feels right. But if you slow it also, you'll start to feel a little more peace. So you can actually breathe into the count of 8 and then close both nostrils. So breathe in one nostril, close the right, and breathe in from the left. Breathe in to 8 and then hold both nostrils closed to the count of 8, and then exhale from the right to the count of 8, and then breathe back in from the same one, the right, to the count of 8, close both nostrils, and then breathe out from the left, and then breathe back in for the count of 8, out, 8 in, hold it. So basically just remember one specific count, and you're going to keep doing that, and then alternate your nose. Now you're going to notice that one nostril is going to be a little more clear than the other, and that is actually very normal. Our bodies tend to go more yin and yang throughout the day. So one side will feel one way and the other side will not feel that same way. And you'll find that that will alternate throughout the day. And that's kind of an interesting thing, but our bodies do alternate, and we're constantly getting to this place of homeostasis so that our body can find balance. But through that, we do have those two sides, those dualities, which is why doing something like this can be so powerful. So by balancing, because our nose is directly open, the olfactory nerve, which is also the sense, is directly linked or connected to the brain. So by alternating those two sides of breathing, you are creating that balance from the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And that also can create more clear thinking. If you are feeling anxious and it's hard for you to really make a decision, this is a great exercise to do. And what this also does is activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the more rest and digest nervous system. So if you're feeling extra stressed and you want to slow down your mind, this is amazing. It also improves oxygenation, and it also creates more mindfulness, because as you're doing it, you're being very conscious of how you're breathing and how you're feeling, because it is a practice that you have to pay attention while you're doing it. So you could do this in the beginning of your day, and then you can do this at the end of the day. And it could be literally 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes at night. And I think that it is really nice to actually do it in the beginning and end of the day, because you're literally doing it at yin and yang times of your 24-hour cycle. So it can help you when you first start to wake up, and then you can help you end the day really nicely and support your nervous system as you go to sleep. So another one that is one of my favorites is called Kapalabhati, and that is skull shining breath. Or you may have heard this called breath of fire. And so ultimately what it is working through your diaphragm. And after you do it for a while, you literally feel like you are breathing fire, because you can feel a lot of fire in your diaphragm area. So the area that I'm talking about is really the soft area of your belly that's right underneath your ribs. So you start to feel this. It's kind of like right above, it's between the bottom of your ribs and your belly button, right in that solar plexus. in that area. So you can put your hands there. And before I actually go into the description of how to do it, I want to talk about what it does. Breath of fire is incredible for digestion, and it is one of the more stimulating breaths. And I remember one of my teachers mentioning that there was like a saying that as many breaths as you breathe, that we only have a certain amount of breaths for our life. And that is why it's important to breathe slow. And the slower we breathe, the longer we can live. And I asked about this one because it's actually a very rapid type of breath. And they said, well, it's considered one breath because you're not fully exhaling. You're kind of like pumping throughout the whole time that you're doing it. So it's actually considered one breath. It's not considered many different breaths. So another thing, the reason why it's called breath of fire is because in Ayurvedic medicine, a lot of times they refer to something called Agni, which is our digestive fire. And that digestive fire, I guess you can say, correlates to really our ability to break down foods and really the acid that we have in our stomach that can cook the food. And ultimately, the breath of fire and Agni is very, very important. And sometimes people will have diminished Agni from drinking too much cold or not really eating correctly. And so we don't want that. We want to actually kindle that fire, because when you kindle that fire, it will protect your body, increase your immune system, and also break down foods so that your body, the rest of the digestive system, is able to really assimilate the nutrition from the food. Another thing that it can do is clear stagnant energy. And then when stagnant energy gets cleared, then you're getting more flow in the body and prana is able to really move. So this is one of the most powerful breaths to really get things moving. And the only thing that I would say with this, and really everything that I'm saying, is not medical advice. And I would also say be cautious. If you are about to do a retrieval, I would not do this breath because they are afraid of ovarian torsion, and this is something that you don't want to mess with. So, and it is a very powerful and moving type of breath. But I like to compare it to when the Native Americans used fire for brushes, to get rid of like old weeds before they created new or planted new seeds. And this is one of those things, you're getting things out of the way, you're burning out the stagnation with this breath in order to get more flow and more new energy coming into the body. So here's how you do it. So in between the bottom of your ribs and your belly button. So put your hand there, and you can put both hands one on top of the other. And what you do is you forcefully exhale. And you will find that when you do that, you're naturally going to bounce back almost like a rubber band, where it just inhales by nature. And then you don't worry about the inhale because it's going to happen automatically. And you just keep exhaling and you just pump with the exhale. So you go, and you'll feel that bounce when you have your hand there. And over time, you'll find that it can get longer and longer as you practice. In the beginning, you might get tired sooner. And sometimes you might even find that it makes you cough. Because it is so purifying, it will actually make you cough up old mucus in your lungs. So it is pretty wild how it works. So the next type of breath is called Bhastrika, and that is also called the Bellows breath. And this is a little bit more active, and I'll describe it so that you understand how to do it. But first, let me explain what it does. So Bhastrika, very similar to the breath of fire, is also a breath that is very active, and it can stoke the internal fire in our bodies. It also involves very forceful inhales and exhales, but in this case, you're going to be using the arms. It is considered to activate the kundalini energy in the body. And this is the energy that runs up and down our spine and feeds really all of our organs and supports our body's energetic flow. And it also is considered to have a balancing effect on the doshas. If you've watched my Ayurvedic video, I talk about the different doshas, which are really elements in your body. And this is considered to be a good breath that balances all of that. It can also boost oxygenation and mental clarity. And how you do it is you raise your arms up and you have your hands out. So your hands are completely open and your arms are just raised up. And you inhale as you do that. And as you exhale, you close your hands and you bring your elbows to the side. So you bring your hands down. So you inhale with your hands up, stretched out, stretch hands, and then you exhale forcefully as you bring it down, as if you're bringing something down or pulling something towards you from the top to the bottom. So your elbows basically end up by your side and completely folded with your hands next to your shoulders in a fist. So inhale, bring your hands up, wide open. Exhale really forcefully as your hands go down into a fist next to your shoulders. So this is kind of related to the breath of fire. There's definitely a lot of heat that will be coming out from it, but it is a very good practice to really get that energy moving. If you feel like it's stuck, this is great if you feel a lot of stress and you feel a lot going on. If you want to come home and you feel like you've had a very stressful day, this is a great way to break that up. So lastly, I'm going to cover something called Bhramari or humming bee breath. So actually, this breath and the way you're supposed to do it is one thing that we know for sure is a technique that stimulates the vagus nerve. And as we know, the vagus nerve is extremely important when it comes to reproductive health. And that's because it has so many different functions. And one of them, which is really key, is promoting really good digestive health, lowering inflammation, improving sleep, and on and on. And it basically helps the body get into a parasympathetic mode. And one of the ways that is known to stimulate your vagus nerve is by humming. And another thing is that when you do hum on an exhale, you are actually by nature, because you're using your voice, you slow down your breath. So this is a great way to slow down your breath as you are exhaling. So this can also reduce any emotional tension, and it can also reduce heart rate and blood pressure. So what you do for this breath is inhale fully, hold it at the top, and then exhale with a humming sound. So, and then you just breathe all the way out. So as you'll notice, when you're humming, you actually slow down your breath. So it naturally slows down your breath, which has an immediate impact on any kind of state of anxiety. It will really calm your mind. So this is an amazing thing to do. You could do this even while you're driving. If you're driving to a doctor's office and you're feeling really nervous, you can do that. I, a lot of times, om in my car, and this is just kind of one of the things that I do. And I find that it really, it feels like I'm singing a song, but I'm just oming. So it feels really calming on my nervous system. It feels like an internal massage, having that vibration. So that can help a lot. And again, you could do this also at the end of the day if you had a lot of things going on, if it was a very intense day, and you can get yourself ready and your nervous system ready for more rest. And actually, that was not my last one. I have one more, and this is something that you can do at all times, and it's called Ujjayi breathing. So if you practice yoga, you may have heard of Ujjayi breathing because it's something that a lot of yogis will teach you to do during your yoga practice. And that is something that you can take with you really throughout the day. And what it is causing a little bit of constriction in your throat as you're breathing so that your breath could be a little louder. So it's kind of like this constriction where you're able to feel the breath going through your throat. So it's like making a little bit of a humming or a sound while your mouth is closed. And you could practice, I'm sure you've done this naturally, even when you were little. And it's something that calms the nervous system as well. And it's a very calming and very grounding breath. It's thought to increase the lung capacity, and it's also thought to balance out the temperature in the body. So it's kind of like a yin and yang balance. And it can also, since it's so grounding, promote a meditative state. So it's something that you can do. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of yogis use this during yoga, because ultimately yoga was a practice that prepared yogis to meditate. It got the body into a state where it was able to meditate more deeply. So just to reiterate, none of this is medical advice. It should not be something that ever takes the place of medical protocols that you've been given. And also to be aware or talk to your doctor if you are going through IVF, to talk to them about different breathing exercises and perhaps to pause on any of them during the IVF process. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, I would love to hear from you. I'm very active on Instagram and my handle is at the Wholesome Lotus Fertility. I don't always respond right away, but I always eventually get to all of them. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you have a beautiful day.